made a statement, and it was hundreds of newspapers. Associ- As- Associated Press stated that Rabbi Weiss said that the Holocaust was exaggerated. When I it took 2 weeks till I came home. When I came home, it was already spread out in the newspapers, and I threatened them with a lawsuit, but I should have gone through with the lawsuit. But they had to make to correct it. That they said it wasn't, that I didn't say it, and we have the papers where they had to say it. And just this last few months, I went to England, and also the Zionist papers wrote that I said something like that, and other issues that's false, and they had to restate it that it's totally false, and they had to, although they didn't want to, but they had no choice. We had the papers. You can look in the Tribune. They just had 2 months ago, a big article that had to say that we made a mistake. It wasn't true. We slandered Rabbi Weiss. It wasn't true. But of course, nobody hears the fact that they had to retake what they said. Because nobody looks at these little comments that they're saying. They just look at the headlines that Rabbi Weiss said it was exaggerated. How I would say such a thing when the majority of my family were killed? My statements were all recorded. You can go to our site, nkusa.org. So it's just a ploy of Zionists, and this is a simple. It's just one example, a very good example how Zionism works. They falsify, they vilify people, they falsify because they have no morals of the Torah. They don't care what God says, so they don't have compunctions to use the name of Judaism, although they know it's totally against God, against the Jewish religion, because they simply want to reach their goal of having a land. They're ready to sacrifice on the altar of Zionism Palestinian lives, Jewish lives, and they don't care that 1,400 people were killed, as long as they'll be able to reach their goal.
Rabbi, what's your opinion about the solution proposed since 1947 by the United Nations, that of building two sovereign states, one Jewish and the other Palestinian?
We believe that there's God who rules the world, who rewards, who punishes, and nobody, asks. There's the tsunami, there's a plague, all earthquakes, and we believe that God is just, God is compassionate, and everything that happens, we have to be introspective and see why He brings this. We don't understand many of the issues. We don't understand a lot of issues of the Holocaust, but we try to understand why God brought this. This is the basics of Judaism. We also know that God created the Satan, the Shaitan. The Satan is given the permission to try to fool the world and bring them to do what's terrible crimes, and the person has to be able to be better than that and not fall into the hands of the Satan. That's what the world is all about through the generations. They created the United Nations right after, by the Second World War, because there was such world suffering. They said we have to create a body of the world leadership in order that there should be peace on the world. And what do? One of the first issues they do is to ratify the state of Israel, which means the majority of Jews, the majority of people, of the inhabitants of Palestine, were Muslim. The second largest community were Christian. The third were Jews. All three of them opposed the creation of the state. Yet they'll ratify this creation of a state of Israel, and they would and that it should be a so-called a Jewish state, which it isn't, but so-called a Jewish state that's going to rule over a large part of the Holy Land. What does that mean? That the inhabitants all of a sudden will have to be subservient to a state that's not their religion, that automatically any person with the slightest sense, with logic, with intelligence, will tell you that means there's going to be agitation, there's going to be a rift, there's going to be hate, there's going to be trouble. How dare they do such a thing? Yet they ratified a state of Israel in a land that was beautiful fabric of coexistence of Muslims, Jews, Arabs, Christians. So for hundreds of years, till Zionism came about, like around 50 years before the state was declared. But so instead of seeing a solution to remove the agitator, the interloper, the people that this movement that came from somewhere else that all of a sudden ruined the coexistence, So instead, they're going to give it a half the land. Wow, what lack of intelligence. I don't want to insult the world body, but so you see, it has to be the works of Satan. It doesn't make any sense. It is wrong. We as Jews stood up from day
But
one. We said we do not accept the existence even 1 inch of the state of Israel. It's against God. It is unacceptable. It's not a Jewish state. We'll never give up our name for this heretic movement called the Zionist state of Israel. And going today, I'll just let you ask, but going to today, the same thing in Gaza. It defies logic. It insults our intelligence to buy into what Zionists are saying. We're going to destroy Hamas. Again, we're not promoting, we're not condoning violence, but it's a reaction. So yesterday was PLO, today it's Hamas. Tomorrow, after they murdered all these people in Gaza, it'll be something else because people cannot be occupied. So it insults the intelligence of the world by doing what they're doing, and that they get supported by world leaders to bomb and bomb and bomb. And there's people lying in the wards without any medical aid. They can't. They're making operations without putting them to sleep. Without
Rabbi,
terrible.
what to do right now? Because the state of Israel is the reality right now. What to do from here to the future? I mean, what's the solution for the region, for both Jewish people and Palestinian people? What to do? A multinational state? What to do?
Let us look at South Africa. South Africa was here. They were a part of the body of the United Nations. Their ambassador was His Excellency this. Imagine, he's His Excellency who is representing a state that says the black people can't drink from the same fountain. The black people have to go to the back of the bus. The black people are mistreated. And yet they were given the respect as a legitimate, distinguished country. And the ones who opposed them were thrown into prison. Nelson Mandela was a terrorist thrown into prison. So yet, and so somebody could throw up their hands and say, well, forget about it. It's here. This is the facts of life, and we have to make do with it and maybe make a two-state solution. The world had the grassroots, the people like me and you and people around the world who said this is unacceptable, and they put pressure on their governments. They said, you may be comfortable in your position, and if you'll stand up against Zionism, you may be blackballed, and you may be considered an anti-Semite because you're standing up. But because you want your votes, you want your political position. But we will insist, as people who have humanity, we call godliness. The people around the world, just like against South Africa, they stood and stubbornly continued till it stopped. Remember, till 70 to 100 years ago, Jews, without any human rights groups to protect them, lived in every single Arab country, in Egypt, in Iran, in Tunisia, in Yemen, Lebanon, Iraq. We had communities that flourished, that put out our greatest leaders, our greatest rabbis. So we had no problem because of even with a distinctly different religion, to coexist. Zionism came, and everything became a quagmire of death and suffering. So now you ask what could be done? Use the logic of the world should see. They just simply will have to turn to them and say, kids, this is enough. You can't do this. It's impossible. We have to remove this. Remember, it's called this Republican Party, Democratic Party, the party of Israel. Remove this party that's celebrating. Remove the party of Israel, so that we'll be able to coexist. I met with the people in Lebanon, Hezbollah. We went to Gaza. We met with the leaders. We were in Al Azhar when they made the meeting. The Mufti of the Grand Mufti of Al Azhar. We met with all the Sunni leaders, with the Shiite leaders in Lebanon. Everyone, unabashedly, said to the world, we are not against Jews. In Iran, they say we are not against Judaism, only against Zionism. They're clear in that. And that's why the Zionists hate Iran, by the way, because they state clearly we are not against Judaism. They have synagogues with big letters on the outside in Hebrew, that the synagogues. We went to the people of Gaza, and they embrace us. It is possible to be done. Therefore, the world has to recognize you must remove the impediment to peace, the cause of anti-Semitism, the cause of bloodshed of the Palestinians. It can be done, and it will be done. And the Torah says, why are you rebelling against me? God says it will not be successful. It can be done, and it must be done. Two-state is not the solution. The solution is removal of an occupation of a political entity that's governing over the people that are rightfully theirs. If they're a criminal group, it can be removed. It can be done. We should pray to God because God is the Almighty, and we believe that He's the power of the world, that He should help us bring about speedily and peacefully, just like at the end of apartheid happened at the end, and USSR that really tried to stifle religion in one day. It can happen, and we have to not be stubbornly with standing on the streets and having the world governments uncomfortable with their position they're taking, putting a stop to the support, putting a stop to the justification of killing of the people in Palestine and of occupying them.
How do you analyze the Hamas attacks against Israel on October 7th?
We cry, we hurt for the deaths that are happening for 100 years since Zionism came about. As I said, Jews were beaten mercilessly by the Zionists for all these 75 years, attacked. This is the Jews who are against Zionism. But then there's the Jews who fall prey to Zionism, and these idealists and people who learn in the university, and they decide to go up on a mountain, on the hilltop, and make a settlement because they think, they buy into it, that it's God's will for Zionists. We're not condoning what they're doing either, but they fall prey to Zionism, and because of that, they're putting their children in danger on the top of the hilltop, and then they're killed. There was the suicide bombers, all the history. All these people are dying because there's a powerful PR, public relations, and a voice of Zionism that is fooling, that is confusing people's minds that what they're doing is proper. And they know that they're fooling people, that it's not Judaism, because they try to breach every law of the Torah. They dig up graves for archaeological purpose that's forbidden according to the Torah. They constantly try to abolish the Jewish religious communities. They know what they are, but they're confusing people. And because of them, there's death of Jews, 100 years of death of Jews, the ones they kill and the ones that die because of them. So now in this last week, what happened was 1,400 people died. They were killed because of the Hamas went out and killed them. We're not condoning the death. We're not saying, we cry and we say that these tens of thousands of people that died, the Palestinians and the Jews, but it's clearly the result of the evil. Why a doctor who would be considered a criminal if he would just put a cortisone or a Band-Aid on a hemorrhaging wound and say you're okay and ignore what's going to happen next week? This, by saying that Hamas is the ones, you're playing into the hands of the Zionist cruelty of their occupation and insulting your own intelligence.
But do you think
state of Israel. It's the state of Israel that is the cause of the 1,400 people to die. It's the criminal. Their hands are covered in blood. Stop them, and there won't be any Hamas. Stop them, and there won't be any Hezbollah. They will stop because we live together. We want to live together. Our fabric of the Holy Land and of the Arabic lands is Jews living with Muslims. You cannot deny our history.
But do you think that Hamas violence is legitimate?
We're not getting into issues that the Zionists want us to talk about. We are not getting into the fact. We are getting into the fact that there are people that are occupied, that are dying, that we don't understand with how they can exist like this. And it is the automatic result, the natural result of being occupied to respond. I'm not going to get into that at all. I'm not going to dignify. That's the talking point. Not that you're trying. I don't mean you, but it's the talking point of Zionism that's trying to obfuscate, to divert from what we have to immediately confront and talk about. Death every single minute of the people in Palestine and Jews. That is purely, directly because of the occupation that is ongoing every minute. And we have to stop and somehow scream to the world that right this second, give medical aid, give cease and desist the bombing and give medical aid. Those people don't have anesthesia. They don't have, they're dying. They don't have medication. They've been bombed. 20,000, whatever this are, injured there. The world dare not be silent. And we're going to talk about issues that have irrelevant because it's Zionism that is causing this. It's do not insult our intelligence. We should not be fooled, pulled into the Zionist the way they want us to talk.